Hey friends, I'm Otis Gibbs, and this is my buddy Gretchen Peters. She's going to share some stories about her friendship with the legendary songwriter Harlan Howard.
I think at the time of his death, he had had number one songs either 4 or 5 decades. I mean, that's a huge accomplishment. He wrote, for instance, he wrote "Busted," which Ray Charles had a huge hit, but loads of people covered that. He wrote "Pick Me Up on Your Way Down," "I Fall to Pieces," Patsy Cline. He co-wrote with, he was in a pack with all those great songwriters like Roger Miller and Red Lane and, all those. And a lot of them were at the same publishing company I was at, which was Tree Publishing, which later became Sony. And he wrote hits straight into the current day. I mean, when I, just very shortly after I got there, he had written Pam Tillis's debut single, which was called "Don't Tell Me What to Do," which was a huge song. So he was as current as they come, but he was an older guy at that point. On the Streets of Baltimore, which I had loved since Graham Parsons, that was where I discovered. I was probably where I saw Harlan's name on the back of a record the first time, was the Streets of Baltimore. The Harlan Howard parties were legendary. It was a big thing every year. There were lots of, in the late 80s and early 90s. I got to Nashville in 87, but at that time there was a lot of money, and there was a lot of big music business parties, and a lot of them were just jive, But the Harlan Howard Birthday Bash and the NSAI Songwriters Hall of Fame were two parties that to me were precious. Like, they were the best. And I think the Harlan party was that way because of Harlan himself, because there was just he sort of just cast his shadow over all of it, and everybody loved him. I mean, he was a lovable, irascible, he liked to hold court. He was like a benevolent principal or something like that. I met him really early on, in my time, and I knew the songs he had written because I was an inveterate, reader of credits. So I knew all the amazing songs he'd written, but I also knew that he had this friendship with Nancy Griffith, who was somebody that I would say was influential in my move to Nashville, because I thought if Nancy can find a place in this town, then maybe I can too, because she was off kilter. She was folky. She was just different. And I was different too. So I knew he had this friendship with Nancy. And that made me think there's more to this. Like, there's more to this whole thing than I'm seeing. Like, it's not, he's not a stereotypical, guy that just hangs out with his redneck friends and writes redneck country songs. And he's like, there's something going on here. I mean, of course, when I got here, I realized, Nashville at that point was more like Paris in the 1920s than it was like some kind of, country music redneck convention. I mean, there was all different kinds of people co-mingling, co-writing, loving what the other people were doing, and, interested in everything. There was much, it just wasn't the stereotypical place that people, and including probably myself, thought it was. And Harlan's very deep friendship with Nancy was kind of evidence with that. And anyway, so I met him, and the first thing that happened is I went to the very first Harlan Howard Birthday Bash that I attended within days of moving to town. I mean, it was like maybe the third day I was in town. And I saw two things that almost made me turn around and go home. One of them was Katie Oslin, who I think her first single had just come out. And I watched her walk out on that stage and just blow everybody away. Here she was in her 40s, unheard of for a brand new artist, right? She had the gloves, and she didn't even look like she was at the same party, as everyone else. And that I heard that, and then I heard Kennedy Rose. They were so wonderful and so different and so almost like they were like a throwback to in a way to music that I had grown up in my teens listening to in Boulder, like Laurel Canyon music, And I thought, whoa, hang on, that's part of Nashville, this KT Oslin and Kennedy Rose, and this is all happening at the Harlan Howard birthday bash. This is really cool, So that was my first experience of that party, and just, and everybody's trying to network and do all that stuff, and here I am, I know like two people, so I'm just like hanging on to my two friends, going, I can't believe I'm here. Jesus, do I even belong here? Should I go home? It's quite intimidating, when you first arrive. And I went every year after that because, of course, it was it was one of the only times you could really see, like, most of the artists in town perform. Because most of the time they were on the road, There were not that many opportunities where you could sit in one parking lot and see, like, Steve Earle and Radney Foster and Roseanne Cash and, 40 other people all in the same afternoon. And I got to know Harlan along the way because he actually really sought me out. I think he heard some song of mine. I don't remember which one of the early ones. And he just decided he was going to befriend me. I mean, I was pretty shy, and it was totally his impetus that made that happen. And he invited me out to one of his favorite hangs, which was the place that it was Maud's. It was Maud's, and then later it was Nashville Country Club, and it was something else. But at the time, it was Maud's. And he would drink White Russians. He would write early in the morning, and he would drink White Russians at lunch, and then that was, we're done. So we would go out, and I'd drink a Diet Coke, and he'd drink a White Russian, and young songwriters would literally come in and like gather at his feet, like he was giving the Sermon on the Mount, And I felt so privileged to be his lunch guest, like his only lunch. Like there I was having lunch with Harlan, and I had no idea why he had sort of singled me out for that, but I thought, I just want to know this man. This is amazing to me that I'm in this position. And at somewhere along the line, at one of those lunches, he paid me I think what is still the greatest compliment I've ever gotten, which he said, he just looked at me and he said, "You have a beautiful brain." And I just have clung to that ever since. That really, really made my life, hearing that from him. The last Harlan Howard birthday bash, he just decided this was going to be the last one. And it was I had just signed my first record deal, but I didn't have the record out yet. So it would have been probably 1995, I'm guessing, but I think that's right. And he always chose two songwriters to co-host the event. He would go up on stage at the beginning, but then he just wanted to be left alone so he could have his White Russians, and he didn't want to MC. So basically, he got two of his buddies to MC for him so he could just relax. And that year, he came to me and he said, "I want you to co-host with Rodney Crowell." And I don't have a record out. I'm just like, what? That didn't sound right. Rodney being another of my heroes. He said, "No, I want you to do it. Will you do it?" And I was like, "Of course I'll do it." Terrified. Like, I haven't emceed anything. Like, I don't know how to do that. And I think I dream walked through the whole thing. I couldn't believe that I was, standing on that stage introducing these people like KT Oslin. He also let the MCs, the co-hosts, choose some of the artists, which was a huge, big deal to me because I had some favorites at that point. I had some friends that I thought were so good that weren't really getting heard. Like Buddy Mondlock was one of them. And I submitted a list to Harlan. Look, here's some people I think are really, really good. And I loved that he wanted that, that showed you where his heart was. He loved songwriters. He didn't give a crap whether, you had a number one hit. He always told me, the year that you don't have a success, you better go to that award show and cheer on your friends that did. And then he would say, and then the next year when you do, you go and rub it in their faces. He was very competitive and funny. But I love that he would do that. He would give us that responsibility to include, to nominate, our own favorite songwriters to be on that show, because that was really important. It's always been really important to me. Like, I really want you to hear this guy, which nobody's paying attention to, but he's brilliant, I think I spent that whole evening just pinching myself and going, God, I hope I'm doing a good job, because I am like 6 feet off the ground. And we did co-write once together, and it was not a great song. It was not a success because I'm a lousy co-writer. And I told him that, and he didn't really believe me, because it's very easy to co-write with him. But I just was like, Harlan, this is not my thing. And we kind of both just went through that experience and acknowledged, yeah, that's not your thing. So we'll just have White Russians and Diet Cokes and lunch, and that'll be what we do.
If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more like it, subscribe to my channel and click the like button and tell me down below what your favorite Harlan Howard song is, and I'll see you somewhere down the road. Much love to you.